Hey everyone, I want to start off by asking you, do any of you know how to start a manual transmission car? I myself didn't know until I learned, and it's kind of easy, but at the same time, if you don't know, you wouldn't understand it. And the way to do it is once you get into a manual transmission car, there's three pedals instead of two. And you put the car into neutral and you have to press down on the clutch, the third pedal, and that's when you can start the car. Kind of confusing, but once you get used to it, it's really easy. Also, I want to ask, do you know how many Americans know how to drive or operate a manual transmission car? U.S. News, U.S. Daily News, I think, reported that about 18% of Americans know how to operate a manual transmission car. That's really low. That's less than half. And about 5% of the cars being made today are manual transmission cars. So manual transmission cars are sort of dying off or becoming extinct, and so are drivers. And today I want to persuade you into having to learn how to drive a manual transmission car before obtaining a license. So if it's either a teen learning how to drive or whoever gets on the road, that you need to learn how to drive a manual car before getting your license. And first of all, I want to talk about the safety of driving a manual transmission cars and how it will save lives. Secondly, I want to talk about how manual transmission cars benefit, all of the benefits that go into it. And lastly, I want to talk about how manual transmission cars are so much more fun than automatic cars today. And to start off, I want to talk about the safety. How are manual transmission cars more safe in our daily lives? Well, first of all, there is a less likely chance that you are going to fall asleep while driving a manual transmission car. When you're driving, you're more focused onto switching the gears rather than just being behind the wheel and holding the steering wheel and driving. So, you sometimes get tired and you can just pass out or spaz out or whatever. And while you're driving a manual transmission car, you have to focus whether you slow down, whether there's a car in front of you, you have to downshift, and you're much more focused, which brings me into the next topic of having more patience and focus on the road. And many states, including Washington, which is where I live, have a requirement of a low age to get a license. And here it's, if you pass driving school, it's 16 years old that you can obtain a license. And at 16 years old, I know myself that I wasn't very focused, but once you're driving a manual transmission car, you're focused on to getting the gears right. You're focused on how the car operates instead of just driving on the road and getting distracted. Also, when you're out in traffic, you have to slow down, you have to downshift, you have to upshift, and that way it's that much more better. As well as, what about trying to eat and drive? With an automatic, you have one hand here and you can eat or drink or whatever. Doing it while on a manual transmission car makes it that much harder. Although I'm not saying many people won't do it, I feel like it'll be more safe because it'll be harder to do it, and not a lot of people will do it. And by all this safety and having people more focused, even when people get into automatic transmission cars, I believe that it will be much more safe and that more lives will be saved from less accidents being caused. And talking about all the safety, I want to switch and off and talk about what are the benefits of a manual transmission car. And the first one I want to talk about is car theft. Sure, I mean, maybe from where we are, there's not much car theft, but it still happens a lot, and stories I heard. And if you think about, only 18% of Americans know how to drive a manual transmission car, then it is so much more less likely that you will have your car stolen. And Dutch Music Fool posted on YouTube this video of a car not being able to be stolen. I want you to watch it right now. And also, manual transmission cars are cheaper to buy. So I know a lot of people that are teens want to get their first car and they're not able to afford anything. So they can just get a manual car and it'll be that much cheaper, and also it'll benefit them. Also, manual transmission cars have better MPG. New York Daily Times posted that if you drive the way you drive and road conditions, you can save about 15% on fuel economy, and that is, money, and for especially for teens, that's saving money, and that's really beneficial for them and just for anyone in general. So although the new cars might have same amount of MPG, older cars, whoever has them. Another funny benefit is that you don't really have to loan out your car to a lot of people, because sometimes, when someone asks you, they're like, hey, can I borrow your car? And you're like, I'm such a generous person. Yeah, of course you can borrow my car. But do you know how to drive manual? And they're just like, no. And you're like, I guess you can't borrow my car because it's manual. So that's one of them. And all this talk about safety and benefits, I really want to talk about the fun of driving a manual car. Not only is it much more safe, but it's much more fun. You have a better desire of driving that car because you control it, you operate it, you see how it works. You go from gear to gear, you control how fast it goes, then switch gears lower, higher. And no computer does that for you. And that's what I like about it. And to conclude, I want you to see how much a manual transmission car is better and how it is becoming extinct. And today I hope I persuaded you into seeing that more people need to learn how to drive a manual transmission car, and that manual transmission cars should be learned how to be driven before obtaining a license. And I hope I talked about all the topics about how safe they are, how beneficiary they are, and how they are more fun. And today I want to thank you for your time, and I appreciate you watching this video.